Okay, we should be up and running at this point. There we go. All right, hey folks, we are up and running. Hello. It sounds like I'm coming through loud and clear. So let me drop that volume out of here real quick. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, I publish them online, and I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition since the release of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. I think we all kind of hope to see more bits about color mana in the from MTG in the D&D environment. It didn't happen, so that's what got me working on the color mana spell point system that's currently on DMsGuild. If you don't know, you can check out my stuff here. Full playlist of the past 135 episodes of this Martial Powers design system is here. The playtest content is here on my Patreon. You can have access at no cost. The color mana system in general is available here. We just finished the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book, which you can check out there. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when I'm live in the future. Just posted that I'm live on the X Twitter platform. If you're still there, I'm at Phil Kearney. Feel free to tag along. And big shout out to the Ravnica DM community on Reddit. It's a great place, great questions, fun ideas. Highly recommended. So, what are we doing here? The Martial Powers system is something that we've been developing for. Well, wait a second, let me grab it here. We've been developing the Martial Power system here for the past year. It's basically an alternate magic system for martial type characters to have a color mana resource the same as the color mana spell point variant rules that we have on DMsGuild. If you haven't seen that yet, you can click into it here, the MTG5 color mana system. All of my stuff has extensive free previews. You can check out the color mana spell list, for example. Why is my face blocked? This is basically providing some basic mechanics as to how you would translate color magic represented into different aspects of game mechanics inside of 5e, as well as damage types by the white, blue, black, red, green color array. Take aspects of magic like divinity and healing as pieces of white, while green has like healing, nature, spirits. Spirits is kind of a green idea, like nature, spirits, and fae, while black deals more specifically like with the soul, as well as like entropy, fear, darkness, but also has like dynamics of controlling other creatures, which is sort of but opposite to restraint and protection, or as opposed to blue, which is suppression. So there's a lot of crossover and contrast. Like if you got coins, right? A lot of these things are like the reverse side of each coin. So there's a lot of fun interplay there. So mix the aspects with your damage types, and you're going to get basically a breakdown of generally what color each spell in D&D is. And if you buy the full bundle, you'll get all 500 plus spells that currently exist inside the 5e game engine. But this pay what you want is specifically for what's in the SRD/Player's Handbook for reference. Yeah, so a lot of stuff here, but all the stuff that we had built previously specifically is dealing with spellcasters. And the Martial Power system is specifically taking that same color mana system. Basically, it replaces the 8 schools of magic in spell slots and replaces it with the 5 color magic system and a 1-for-1 spell point system where if I spend 1 point, I can cast a first level spell. If that spell is red, I'll spend a point of red magic. If it's a 9th level spell, I'll need 9 points to spend. If it's like, say, a 5th level spell, like a black 5th level spell, then I'll take 5 points of mana. At least one of them has to be black. The rest of them can be whatever I want. So that's basically how color magic in D&D works. Add as much flavor as you want. Check out Dice Try's channel on YouTube for a real deep dive into color philosophy to help sculpt how your character expresses themselves through the color, and then you can build your mana pool to reflect those deals. If you're an Orzhov white-black sort of character, then you can be a character that utilizes white and black mana to manifest their powers and their spell casting to stay in flavor with what their own philosophies are, and in Ravnica or Strixhaven, what guild or college they're a part of. So it's designed to have a very strong ludonarrative where your mechanics are backing up your philosophies. Very, very fun things to use. The Martial Power system specifically takes it converts a lot of barbarian, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, and rogue resources into that color mana pool system. And on top of it, we allow martial characters to become quadratic and the same, well, exponential. Like the complaint is that martial characters are linear progression where they don't get a lot of toys and they kind of just have like a slow increase over time, as opposed to casters have an exponential growth where they have access to more resources every level and more options to spend those resources on every level. So the playtest that we have here is a means of providing basically half casting to all classes minimum, and then we have conversions for all the martial subclasses, like every single one of them, into the power system so that they get free powers as they gain levels. We modify the subclass features that they get, and then we have a master list of new powers. There's a total of 209 of them. 151 of them utilize spell points as those spells, and the other 50 some odd are basically like cantrip effects, including free feats. It's like if you want a fighter that doesn't have to mess around with a mana pool at all, you can call yourself Rakdos with blue-red magic, but every time you would gain a power, and like let's say you're playing a 7th level Rakdos fighter. 7th level, you'd have 8 powers. If you don't want to fuck around with mana at all, you don't have to. You could instead go down to the meta powers, which includes a list of feats, about 20 some odd feats that you could choose to spend instead of learning powers. So you could throw away your mana pool altogether and just have a stack of feats that allow the fighter to instead use your ASIs, your ability score increases, to actually increase your ability scores, and use your power list to instead gain feats. This is a very 3rd edition approach to martial mechanics, but also has stacked on top of it enchantment auras, where you could sustain with concentration or by locking mechanics on to gain various abilities that your character would be able to reliably count on, like strange metabolism. When sustaining this power, you're immune to poison damage and the poison condition. In addition, as a bonus action, you can make an unarmed attack that deals a die worth of poison damage, and the creature is poisoned until it can succeed its saving throw. Like, that's one thing you could turn on as a personal enchantment effect, or like a self buff concentration effect, as opposed to like strikes, which are like alternate smite features that paladins, as a natural smiter, is just better at doing by dealing more damage than anyone else. But all these conditions are things that any character can opt into as some of the powers that they have. We've got a stack of 20 some odd different reactions, many of which are considered opportunity attacks that can be utilized specifically in combat against opponents. Maneuvers are things that you can exchange your action economy to give your allies options, or to afflict enemies with conditions. Kind of like point and click effects, or like point and save type of instant spell effects. We have and then there's exploits. Exploits basically modify die rolls. Like, for example, ambush. You add dice when you make the stealth skill check or when you're rolling initiative. This gives you a chance of being to act faster, for example. And the kind of die that you roll is much like a martial arts die, or a bard inspiration die, or a battle master superiority die. It advances as you gain levels, starting with a D6, evolving into a D8, and eventually a D10. The basic mechanic is however much mana you spend is how many dice that you throw. If you're dealing damage or healing somebody, for instance, you're going to generally add all the dice together for your result. If you're modifying ability checks, saving throws, or like attack rolls, then generally what it is that, like, I could throw 3 dice and roll 3 8-sided die, but I'd keep the best result. So it's like, it's not as good as a bardic inspiration die of the same level, but a bardic inspiration die is you roll once, you get the result, there you go. With this is you can spend as much mana as your max rank would allow you to spend, and you can roll multiple dice and keep the best result. But after a while, there's depreciating returns. Generally, after 2 or 3 mana worth of dice, like rolling 2 or 3 dice is generally going to give you like a 50-50 or better chance of having a high die roll. Like if it's a D8 with 2 dice, you've got a 50% chance of rolling 4 or above, basically. If you roll 3 dice, you're most likely going to roll above a 4. So it's just up to you. How important is it for you to get a good result to stack onto your ability check or your saving throw or this attack roll or reducing the enemy's chance to hit you in exchange. So that's the basic tenets of the system. It's pretty straightforward. I've been playtesting at high levels from level 15 to 20 with my home table for the past half year or so. Works great. Time to start a new campaign with some playtesters that aren't already familiar with the system to see if they grok and like it. We built our characters in session 0 on Saturday last week. We've got some really cool things that are built out that we'll talk about in the future. And our actual first adventure is this Saturday as well. So, having said all that, as the DM, I've been, if you've caught the stream in the past, I've been developing essentially what is a Rubblebelt hex crawl. We're using squares because I'm a square guy. But it could be hexes instead if you wanted to. It's essentially a hex crawl. So each square is 10 miles. Each 3x3 space, therefore, is a 30-mile space. The region is dictated by color, and of course in Magic the Gathering, white is plains, blue is islands, red is mountains, black is swamps, and green is forest. So like in this region, the overall flavor is mountainous. And then each tile inside of the region further specifies what type of land environment are you messing around with. The points represent elevation, an elevated area, like toppled sky structures or floating islands or mountains, for instance. The dash represents a flat line, level ground. And then the V's represent sunken terrain, like an open wound into the ground that can lead into the rotted out undercity. And this is all in the Rubble Belt, where it's wasteland between pockets. Like in a Point of Light campaign, you've got urban centers dotting the planet, and all the spaces in between these urban centers is wasteland Rubble Belt. It's called Rubble Belt because of the 20-mile-long worms that come up the surface to mate or migrate, destroy everything under them, and then sink back below the ground and then disappear for God knows how long. It could take decades or centuries to rebuild all the structures that are destroyed from worm surfacing, and so it creates these long strips of waste that is called, it's rubble because the buildings are destroyed, and they're belts because these are like long strips or belts across the land where these worms are migrating across the terrain. So they go fallow. It only takes a couple decades for nature to reclaim them. This is where Gruul likes to hide and grow strong in, as well as non-gilded intelligent creatures and wild monsters and aberrations, stuff like that can spawn like a normal D&D Wildlands campaign. Meanwhile, you have all the guilds off in the urban areas. So this, as I talked about before, this campaign is about NPCs and the characters traveling from one urban center to another across the Rubble Belt in a skyborne ornithopter. For one reason or another, it crashes into a swamp in the starting region, and your job is to march westward to get your way out, or to find some means like a communications tower or a ascending stone enchantment to alert people that you're still alive. You need rescue. Come help. So they'll be facing many monsters and tasks and threats and rogue artifacts and wild enchantments while they're traversing the tiles. They're all dictated by the colors that they're crossing through. So what I wanted to focus my attention on today specifically is using the 5-room dungeon theory to craft environments. So we've already spent some time discussing this, that depending on what gets randomized into your hex crawl, and we'll kick down here to the bottom feed where we have, again, this document's on my Patreon. You can find the link to it down below to take a look at this. It's a read-only document, so you can check it out. This will eventually be published on DMsGuild. But when we scroll past all these sample characters, there we go. We get into the actual playtest design for the Ravnica Rubblebelt West March Platoon campaign. So we have different types of land: white, blue, black, red, green, plains, islands, swamps, forests, mountains. We roll a die to see what type of terrain it is. 6 is the same, basically wherever you're leaving from and entering into is just an extension of the current land that you're already inside of. There's also elevation differential. So depending on what kind of land it is, what color land your tile is, you're rolling another d6 to determine whether it's elevated, flat, or sunken terrain. And depending on what type of terrain it is and what color combinations you have, we have various land cards from Magic the Gathering decks that dictate what the type of land is. Like a citadel, like a white citadel gate is white land. Like we have grasslands, overgrown pavilions, Azorius Civic Center ruins, Azorius Precinct ruins, Orzhov Temple ruins. They're all ruined because worms, sandworms, again, world worms. Selesnya Gardens. These are all white motif, but flavored by the different subcolors, the other colors that can exist inside this terrain. So we've built out a number of samples. This is the first tile that the team is going to be facing in the Rubble Belt, which is center left. You're in the starting block here. This is the first tile that the team is going to be in. It's blue on blue. So we roll a d4 to choose which of the guilds had dominance inside that blue space, and we rolled up top. It's it was rolled to be sky lanes. So it's floating islands with connecting bridges is the floating terrain, or the white part of this space, represented by Azorius. And then we had to actually have the terrain underneath it, since it was in a water terrain with floating islands. There's still ground underneath it. That got rolled up as Simic. So the team is actually dealing with Azorius up top, and then Simic Watery down below. So, hey, what's up? Sand world worms sounds super interesting. If you check out Ravnica, they have these world worms. They are 20-mile long worms. They're like dune sandworms, but just like a half-mile diameter, 20 miles long. They carve their way up to the surface, destroy everything, and then sink back down again. And if you're getting caught in a breeding season or a migration pattern, there could be dozens of them that are surfacing at the same time, taking out hundreds of miles worth of urban environment, that it's impossible for Izzet and Rakdos to recover that terrain fast enough. These are the places that Gruul thrives, the red-green clan that in Ravnica that just wants to destroy civilization and structure. They just want wild chaos and things to return to might makes right natural order. From Gruul, the first wave of civilization is Selesnya, where they tame land to become tamed. They tame the land, they tame the animals in that environment to become a food source and a resource center in a sort of militant hippy-dippy like communism gone bad sort of vibe to their guild. And then from Selesnya starts to grow actual urban structures like Azorius Senate structures, Boros, militant defense forces, etc. You go from wildland Gruul into Selesnya and like Golgari is black-green energy, so reharvesting the rot and the destruction to become useful again. That's what Selesnya is white-green and Golgari is black-green. It's the same. It's like different sides of the same coin, of different means of reconstituting the wild to become a useful resource, either through reclaiming rot in the form of Golgari, or encouraging and spawning life in the direction of Selesnya. And then from there, the rest of urban structures and infrastructure starts to flow in, and we start seeing urbanized areas, suburbs, and stuff like that start to build out from there. But there's these massive tracks between the two, and those spaces in between, that rubble belt, is where the hexcrawl adventuring in a wild environment can occur between the urban sprawls. So I'll catch up on text here real quick with you guys. Hey, Ross. Worms, and I believe so. Yes, we see things evoking them through Selesnya. Yes. And Gruul, I think, uses them too to destroy structures. They'll summon worms to basically erupt and destroy a structure and then sink back down below the surface again. So there's a lot of different ways you can mess around with it. But yeah, so specifically, so all this stuff is for the new folks that are here. I'll just point you to where this is at down here. You can check out the document that I'm working on here, the Martial Powers playtest content. It's in my Patreon. You don't have to be a member of my Patreon, but if you click the Martial Powers link here, it's a read-only document. It's got all the mechanics for the character classes, rebuilding them using the color mana system for the Martial Powers stuff that we've been developing. And at the very end of the document is where the Rubblebelt random system generator is at. So this is what we've been using to build the tiles of land that we're using for our playtest campaign on Saturday. And so today we're talking about getting back to the meat of today's conversation. Now that I've kind of streamed, just kind of bolted quickly through what we're doing. These are basically the 20 ways that you can connect or structure a 5-room dungeon. So the idea here is that, again, looking at our table, our general land mass using squares, the starting swamp where your ornithopter is being pulled down into the dredge. So you have to vacate the ship, and now you're stranded out in the Rebel Belt, nowhere. The first tile that the team is going to take on is blue. We already said that it's got sky islands, and then waterways beneath it. So on the surface level, it has a Simic flavor, and then the floating islands has an Azorius flavor because that's what we rolled on the table. So looking at, it's a 10 miles. This is a 10-mile square. This whole region is 30 miles. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. There you go. For us to be able to randomly generate a 10-mile square, I'm going through that process. Let's look at overland, far shot, and then we have first blue on blue region here. 1 tile, 2 tile, 3 tile, 4 tiles. Here's some sky islands that I created, some just rough sketches from last episode where we're just seeing how rocks might have buildings populated on them. But stepping past that right now, what I want to do is let's grab this sampler here. Pull that out of the mess, collapse this. There we go. All right, so the idea here is we have a full 20, so I could roll a d20 to determine a random pattern. But for today, I'm going to roll a d10 and stay inside of the second set. So here's the idea that goes on behind that. I'm just going to take my d10, I'm going to roll it. I rolled a 9. So that's going to be here. This is going to be number 9. So if each one of these tiles is a 10, if this square here is 10 miles, right? If you check out my Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document that I publish on DMsGuild, it works with massive scaling. It provides really basic mechanics on how to integrate scaling into your campaign. And we're going to use a very, very small piece of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Copy, paste, free transform, rotate 180, there. So this is a 10 by 10 square, and if that was this is 10 miles, this is 10 miles, so that means that each one of these squares is 1 mile. So we chose number 9, which is very structured, very, very Azorius. So we're going to take that general idea and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the connectors here are indicating where sky bridges existed at one point. So this is a highly integrated area that we're looking at. So let's do that again, but less sloppy. We're gonna go with let's just keep it simple. We'll go with one square. We'll go with 1 mile per region, and we'll set up like this, roughly like that, and then another one, say like this. So we now have a 5-point structure and they're going to be connected 2 miles, 2 miles, 2 miles, and this one's going to be 3 miles, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 miles. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 miles. This is 1, 2, 3 miles, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4 miles. There we go. That's our basic array. So we're looking at the 10-mile scale. Each of these areas is 1 mile, and then what we can do is we can, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Rebuild here, and we can take, like, this is our first point. So we can then zoom into this node, and we can roll another D10. This time I rolled a 5. So that's going to be this array. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll go blip. I'm going to take this. Blip. 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 Oh, I did that wrong. There, like that. Blip. 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 So each one, so this is a 1 mile square here. So this 10 by 10 space is also 1 mile. 1 mile. 10 miles. Which means each one of these squares is 500 feet. So we can, again, why are you not merge? Thank you. We'll do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll roll another D10. Thank you, timer. 4. So this time we have a 4. So we can take this here and zoom in. This is now 500 feet. So each one of these squares is a 50-foot square, which is small enough to actually be thinking about actual buildings. This one, I rolled a 4 on this one, so we'll use this structure. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Connect, 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 connect. So inside of this 10 mile, we go back here. If we're looking at the floating islands that are in that square, a 10-mile square, we have 5 major structures that are. We'll now figure out how much of it is actually connected by bridges or not. So we got, this is our main structures at 1 mile scale, and then we go to each individual of these 5 structures, and we see how this clump of floating islands is structured like this, with sky bridges connecting each of them, and then the larger one moving off to here, right? And then we have each of this structure at the 1 mile scale zoomed in again here. We'll have this structure, say, moving off screen like this, which would be here is here, and this is here. And so this is now at the 50-foot scale. So we would be able to take each of these individual islands, and if we were to space them out, this would be a 50-foot space that this would be occupying. Burp, burp, burp. Roughly like that. So there's one of the floating islands, which is here. And this is a 50-foot square here. So this is literally 5 feet. So I could, if I wanted to random up each individual island, I have 5 times 5 is 25 times 5 is 125. So inside of this 10-mile area, I could have 125 50-foot floating islands. Or if I wanted to, I could have each of these nodes, this 1-mile node, I could have an individual island. I could have like this entire node here could be a single island. Instead of breaking it up into individual islands, I could just have a single 1-mile island. And then I could have these structures that exist on the island, like this, that are connected with rubble, waste, ruins, and stuff like that that are just floating in between. That's the general idea of how to be able to take large structures and then break them down into smaller pathing. So this is roughly where this is the array that we're going to have, and this will be the first section that they can find inside of it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 connections. I'm going to do a D8 to see how many of these connections still remain intact over time, to find out where our natural pathing is going to be. If we don't have all these skyways still connecting all the floating islands, that's going to reduce where the natural pathing that the character is going to be able to use to move inside of this environment at the heightened scale. So I rolled a 4. So we'll go, it's a no. So we're going to eliminate this one. And the next one is a yes. And then the next one is a no. I'm just rolling odds or evens for yes or no. And once I'm down to only 4 left, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we still have this one here. That is a no. This one here is a yes. This one is a no. So this island has no existing connections to it. So the only way the team is going to be able to get to it is by flight or climbing up to it somehow. 3 is a yes, and 2, there we go, is a no. So this is how these islands are connected to each other inside of this node. And this is going to be the one that's closest to where the team starts, and where the combat, where they're going to have their first potential encounters with aerial opponents that could lead them to this location. So this is going to be the arrangement that we see inside of this node. I see some text. Give me a second to process these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So odd or even. I have 3 that remain. Let's see. Let's just go about it. That is a no. This is a no. So this island, and because we have our scaling, we know each one of these squares is 500 feet. So depending on what your character's capabilities are, will determine how they can get to or fro. This one's still connected. This one is not connected. Connected. Not connected, and not connected. So here is our network in the initial tile. So they can get all the way to the center of the tile here by getting on board here, traversing this sky lane, dealing with whatever's here, traversing this sky lane, which leads them across to here. So we know from the previous sessions that we have a Lammasu that is the white boss for this region. Eliminate that. And the Lammasu, we already determined the Lammasu is in a library. So this here is a library hub. But each of these can be separate things that we can randomly roll during the adventure to determine what the purpose of each of these structures were. Got that there. This is a standalone. This has a bridge that connects. And this connects. This connects. This connects. And this connects. That's broken. That's broken. 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 And we can have middle points here. There's little substations. This has a floating substation that has no connections. And they're about a mile apart from each other, right? So there we go. And each of these substations can also have their own little 5-room dungeon. Hey, what's up? There's a link for the card that references the worms. Yeah. Imagine a worm city. Yeah, it swallows entire buildings. I mean, it's a 20-mile worm. It's huge. So yeah, you could potentially, like, I could see a Simic, Golgari, or Gruul clan actually making a building, probably Golgari more than anything, considering the rot nature of them. Actually having domiciles inside of those worms that just are simply living off of whatever gets swallowed by the worm during its movement, processing the stuff as it goes through, picking out what they want as it goes through this digestive tract, having like a potential like a few 500-foot squares of space inside of the worm's gullet that they're able to pick out anything that's useful to help keep building on their city environment inside of the worm, dealing with parasites and anything that gets swallowed and survives as new arrivals that they're either going to have to fight or integrate into their society. So all these worms that are traversing could have little biomes inside of their bodies of these little isolated cultures that when it pops to the surface and their maw opens, there's an opportunity to hop out and run away if you wanted to, or to go out and scavenge around it before the worm traverses and then dives back underneath again to get back in its mouth and carry on to another part of the world. Like, that'd be a very unusual nomadic style of life. But I could see a colony of Crawl very easily living that way. Golgari Crawl that have been cut off and start building their own rules around how Golgari society should be idealized inside of this worm's gut. There could be a warring faction inside of there between different Golgari clans, or like there could be a Gruul clan that got eaten that's fighting against Golgari, or just trying to get out of the worm the next time it surfaces, so they're just biding their time at the mouth. So a lot of fun things you could do with that. That'd be a really fun micro adventure, like a 3 or 4 session one kick. Yeah, so this is the basic idea behind how a point crawl campaign can be developed, using 5-room dungeons as your general format of moving from one location to another. The team is starting at 3rd level, so very, unless they all took flying species, which we didn't. It would be they have to find means of being able to climb onto and then traverse this skyway environment. They're going to be pitted against pixies, which are natural flyers, and of course the boss in the sky in the Sky Islands is Lamassu, which also is a flying creature, high CR creature, far more powerful than what the 3rd level characters would normally be able to take on. So that creates an opportunity for them to have conversation as a social / exploration challenge, for them to negotiate with the Lamassu for resources or information. It's in a library, so there's a lot of potential there for them to be able to dig up old information that they might find, like an old city map that will give them a basic idea of what sort of resources they can expect to see in the surrounding area if they wanted to go in that path, or to find out about different factions that are in control of different tiles as we go through the Rubblebelt. So, but this is the general setup that we're looking at. And if we go back to our document here in the sky, here, let's see. Elevated terrain is Skyline Cascades. That's what it was, Skyline Cascades. So, there's mists and high winds. That mist obscures vision. High winds makes ranged combat and movement for tiny-sized creatures difficult. So that's going to actually create blockades that the pixies would not be able to traverse on their own, because they're tiny-sized creatures. They can't pass through wind wall regions. So if we develop some areas that are going to create natural barricades for the creatures, they might actually be interested in negotiating with the party to eliminate wind walls to open up space that they can fly in. Currently, that's interesting. Okay, I just rolled that 16% of the tiles in this 10 by 10 space is traversable space for the pixies. Otherwise, they have to go down to street level where they're in Simic territory, where there's a colony of rogue aquatic Krasis that have taken command of the region. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to carve off a space that is traversable by the pixies, which is also going to help us limit the scale of battle or the traversable terrain that we need to actively be concerned about. So we're here at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There. So the Pixies' problem is, since the Lamassu moved in, these wind walls came up. So the Pixies are kind of enslaved to the pathways that are open to them, offered by the Lamassu. The Lamassu is controlling the environment. This is what we call emergent storytelling. Challenges, surface, Simic, surface, shallow waters, pickles, conflicts. Let's see, Skyway challenge, surface, shallow caves, layers, the top. Okay, here we go. Skyline cascades. Creates wind walls that can't be traversed by the Pixies. The Pixies are restricted by the Lamassu. Denying Pixie travel within the wind wall regions. Pixies would like to have the enchantment removed. To open the sky again. Lamassu won't. Lamassu controls the enchantment in its library lair. So this is the territory that the Lamassu has closed off using wind walls, which is restricting the Pixies. Maybe the Pixies have an emperor here in this isolated area. The Lamassu is here. The Pixie King is here, held hostage by the Lamassu. And then the Pixies get to free roam in this area. The Lamassu wants more knowledge. We've already established that the Lamassu is looking for books that have fallen off of the skylanes into the waterways beneath it. So there's sunken ruins inside of the Simic region of the terrain, and the Pixies and the Lamassu can't get to it because it's underwater. So if the Pixies can find... The Lamassu wants the knowledge. The Lamassu has charged the Pixies with finding a way to get the knowledge that's buried underwater. The Pixies can't do that. The Lamassu doesn't care. The team has an opportunity to get the Pixies on board by retrieving books from underneath the water in the Krasis, the Krasis layers. If they can do that, they win favor with the Pixies, because now the Pixies can give the information to the Lamassu, and maybe the Lamassu will let them go free and drop the wind wall, maybe won't. Alternatively, the Pixies could ask the characters to take out the Lamassu or negotiate a means of opening up a path so that the Pixies can get to their Pixie King instead of keeping them held hostage. So these are the dynamics at play, and the Krasis just want to be left alone. They just know that once this Lamassu thing came in, going to the surface became hostile because they're being attacked by pixies. So that's the conflict that they're facing. So going back to our waterways, I'm going to eliminate this square because it's currently not necessary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to roll again. This time we're going to use these middle 10 as my D10 roll. So I'm just going to roll 9. Let's go with this one. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we're traversing this space, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's move this one forward. Oh, okay. How are we doing on time? It's 1:30. I've been at this 45 minutes. All right, I got to bounce out of here in a few minutes. This is just a lunchtime stream, but this is the stuff that we're working on. So here to here to here to here to here to here. So this is going to represent safe pathing on the ground. There's going to be, let's see. This is spilling in from the swamp where their ornithopter is sinking. And they've got a strip of land here. It's looks like about, well, these are 1 mile spaces each. And then if we look at the overall map, here, we know that once they move out of this, they've got plains off to the north. They've got more potential flooded area forward and to the southwest. And then to the south, they have mountains. There's my timer. So I'll be out of here in just a minute, but this is the kind of ideas that we're playing with today. So this is going to lead off to more stable terrain off in this direction. This is going to just flat out lead to more. There will be an island poking up out of the water here. And this is going to lead off to stable terrain in this direction. This is going to be a patch of land that's stable. And this is going to be a patch of land. We're going to call that broken just for some variety. And then there's more swamp off that direction. There's more waterway off in that direction. This direction is the start of hills. It breaks off like that. So that's not easily accessible. So this is where I'm going to want to center our activity, inside of this block here. There's a 4 mile area. So we'll take another D10. I'm going to use, let's use 1, 2, let's just do a D8. We'll do these 4 here. So roll a D8, and I got a 6. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I got that again. That's fine. To here, like that. To here. This is going to be the Krasis lair in this grotto. So this is where the team wants to get to. Build this out like that. Let's go. Each of these squares, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you. There, so each one of these squares is a half mile. So we can traverse 6 of these per hour at normal speed. So once the team gets into this place, they are at risk of being attacked by Krasis. But this is where the library is that the Lammasu thinks the information that they want is hidden inside of. So this becomes a terrain that they now have to engage in. So as they're traversing this area, every time they're walking through a square, they can go through one square every 10 minutes. You can move 3 miles per hour, which means you can traverse 6 squares per hour. So each square is 30 minutes. So basically every 30 minutes there's a chance of a random encounter, maybe like a 1 on a 4, for instance. They'll run across some sort of a threat that's already been built into the document that we have here for the train that we're inside of. Beneath the skyline, Simic ruins, untended mutation pools, rogue Krasis colonies. Surface is shallow, still water with sinkholes. Shallow caves hide Krasis colonies that can harass and be aggravated by pixies under the command of the Mad Lammasu. Lammasu tile boss, and then let's see. Conflict. Krasis have taken home in many shallow layers in the shadows of the stilled islands, held aloft by magics. Lammasu believes the Krasis are hoarding hidden books from sight, sending pixies in to scout out the area. Pixies, skyline, shallow waters. Here's my Krasis stuff. The sunken colony with the general Krasis stats. The Krasis queen, using the martial power system to buff out what these creatures are capable of doing against the party. And we had built in a previous episode the rough structure using a 5-room dungeon of the depth of the water underneath the library structure, and how the surface is connected to the underlevels where the queen is at. The library knowledge here, main passage, the surface, main passage, the spawning pools that connects to the queen's chamber, and then the actual hidden knowledge at the very end of the dungeon. So the team can access that information in this space by getting into this, which leads into here. This is their actual access point into the entry that then goes underground. So that's the gist of what we've got going on in this campaign space. And that can probably keep the team occupied for probably 3 or 4 sessions. So they might be able to clear this hex in the course of 1 month. When they do, we'll upgrade the characters. They're starting at 3rd level. Once they clear This tile will upgrade the team to 5th level because it's a playtest. It's not congruent. It's episodic instead of serial. There you go. So I got to bounce out of here. It is 1:40. It is time for me to go back to work. This has been a very fun session. If you think this stuff is interesting, you want to find out more about it in the future, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Maybe check out some of the books that I have published on DMsGuild. If you're interested, they all have extensive free previews for you to check out. If you think the color mana system is something cool, again, we are actively testing the martial power system here, which will be added to those other books at probably a 30% discount once it comes out. So pick up the bundle if you want, or pick and choose from it, whatever you think is interesting. And thanks for any support. If you're interested, in the link down below, there's also a link to my Discord channel, or if you're coming from the Dice Tribe channel, I'm available in the ttrpg threads there if you want to shoot the shit. Or you can catch me on the Ravnica DMs subreddit on Reddit, Ravnica DMs. So that's it. I'll catch you guys in the future. Thanks a lot for being here. I will be back. I've got to go downtown tomorrow morning, so I'll be back building the Spelljammer 500-foot mega crab ship. I'll be back doing that tomorrow night. Yeah, so I'll see you guys then. Laters.